Hello, this is Robert Rickover. I'm an Alexander Technique teacher in Omaha, Nebraska, and my guest today is Imogen Ragone, an Alexander Technique teacher in Wilmington, Delaware. And we've been doing a series of conversations about Alexander ideas of various kinds. And we're doing a little break from our usual process, which is I don't tell her ahead of time what we're going to talk about. And I think maybe it's better if she does have some idea what we're talking about. So she's been warned what the topics are today. Mm-hmm. And for this interview, I want to discuss the word notice and its usefulness for Alexander teachers and students. The person who I first encountered, the teacher who I first encountered who used that word a lot was Marjorie Barstow. She might help someone a little bit in an activity, and then she would often say, "What do you notice? What do you notice?" She did not ask, "What did that feel like?"
Yeah.
And I think it's a really important distinction. What I like about the word notice is that it's a very mild word, a kind of an unassuming word. It doesn't necessarily include any kind of call to action. You know, I woke up this morning, I noticed that it rained last night. Okay, I just filed that away. I might never think about it again. Or I might think, oh, I got to do some stuff in the backyard to deal with that. You know, it could be a range of reactions.
Yeah, can I just
jump in? Yes, absolutely.
I think my very first Alexander Technique teacher, who I studied with for a couple of years before I started training, I think that was sort of a hallmark question from lessons with her, and continued almost with almost every teacher I've encountered. What did you notice? And really trying to steer me away from feel, which I'm sure in the beginning I was very much, oh, that felt this, you know, because that's where we go. And it was an attempt to, no, just what did you notice about that? But I agree with you. It's lighter, it's milder. And to me, it's helps you create a little bit of space between you and the thing that you noticed, which so you're present to it, but you're not like in it, like a feeling. You can kind of be down in it, and you can also try and create it. And there's all the other problems possibly with the word feel, but notice is like it. I think it helps you stay out of that and have that little bit of space.
It's a very neutral word, isn't it? It doesn't carry with it necessarily any other message like, oh, and that's bad or that's good. It's just what is.
Yes, exactly. And in fact, I've come across the word notice in another context, and in particular with the work of someone called Susan David. She has a TED talk about emotional agility, but she advises people not, first of all, don't say like, I'm sad, like you are not your feelings. But then you could say, I'm feeling sad, which is a step better than I'm sad, but I'm noticing that I'm sad. Is like you're still present, you're aware, and that you might need some action that you want to take to help comfort yourself, for instance, in that. But it creates that bit of space that's helpful. And I think it's the same idea.
Yeah, I think it's exactly the same idea. Yeah, well, I'm glad to see that that's out there in other areas too. I just thought, for fun, I looked up the dictionary definition
Oh.
One of them is notice the fact of observing or paying attention to something. And that something could be pretty much anything, like my dog seems hungry, to there's a tornado coming. Time to go to the basement. There's quite a range of things that it can cover. So, yeah.
It occurs to me before you continue, and so I don't lose my thread, that it also, when you ask people what they notice, it's an open question, and the noticing could go in any direction. You're not, it feels like there's that, kind of like you said with the dog, it could be this whole range from, I noticed maybe in the context of an Alexander lesson that I feel a little bit lighter. That's kind of more general. Or it could be, I felt a release in my wrist. But it could be, for some reason when that happened, I was really aware of the sunshine. It really, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a great word. It's a perfect Alexander technique teaching and learning word, because it is kind of open-ended. It's not I guess the word is prescriptive, or what's that the right word? Prescriptive of doing anything about it. It's just a great word. And honestly, I don't have a lot more to say. Do you have? I just think it's a word that I think it just needs to be appreciated a little more.
Yeah, I think one other benefit, when I'm kind of explaining why it's more helpful than feel, is that it really takes the burden off having to feel anything. Because then some people can feel like less than, because they didn't feel a release in whatever, or no. But when it's just like a really open notice, and you can notice that you didn't perceive anything, I guess you could, I don't know, it just seems to take some of the burden off. There's and not a have to associated with it somehow. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think also that same quality applies if you're, for example, experimenting on your own with Alexander ideas, directions, for example.
For sure.
You could, and especially, for example, if you're testing them to see, is that a useful direction? So you use it and then you throw it away or replace it with a nonsense thought and bring it back. And you could just, your intention could be just to notice what happens.
Yeah.
And it has all of those same advantages there as well.
I'm struck by an experiment you've had me do sometimes when we've played, with an idea, and you have me walking, and I'm thinking you've described this with students, and I've done it with students in the past, is that maybe they don't notice anything change with their quality of their walk or how they feel, but they might notice that the sound of their footsteps across the room has changed, for instance. So you can guide someone's attention to notice in different areas that they might not have thought of. But there's all different ways that we can notice. Yes.
A lot of times people will say, a new student might say, it didn't seem like really much happened, but I did notice this. And I'll say, that's pretty important. So it does, it doesn't put pressure on the person to come up with the right answer. And it can open up other possibilities too. So is there anything else you want to say about that word?
just that I love it. And we even sometimes in my group classes play what I call the noticing game.
Yeah.
Which is just literally we go around like, what am I noticing in this moment? And it can be just quite interesting, from visual to physical sensation to any other sensory input, cognitive. I mean, there's so many different ways you can notice, but it always seems to be a way of helping people get present and a little bit more integrated somehow. So anyway,
Yeah,
the
you know,
noticing game.
yeah, when Marge was teaching in groups, which is mostly what she did, she typically had students arranged in a roughly circular arrangement. And sometimes she would just say, well, what do you notice about the other people in the room? And
Yeah.
she making it very clear that she wasn't looking for judgments or anything like that, but what do you see? And then maybe when she would work with somebody a little bit, that you were more likely to notice the change that occurred. So that it was part of her general process of perhaps working individually often, but involving the entire group in that process. So it can open out things. I guess you could say it's a word that just doesn't take up much space, but opens up all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
Not that I can think of right now.
All right. Well, my guest today has been Imogen Ragone. I'll put information by the video and the podcast that'll be made of this as well. And thank you so much for doing this.